All right, here we go. So I am putting the link to the YouTube in the chat below. So make sure you mute yourself here. If you need to leave, you can leave, and I'll see you on that side. Remember to announce yourself and make sure that you can hear what I'm saying on YouTube.
So do I leave here because I'm about to get back on the train? I know my YouTube not gonna work down there.
Yeah, just come in as much as you can. This will be on YouTube for a long time, so if you miss some parts, you can just go back whenever you want.
Or you dropping a link for the YouTube right now so I can save it?
Yep, I just put it in the chat, and it'll be up on a playlist soon. I'll show you where that is later.
Wait, so boom. So I got the YouTube thing up. I gotta stay on here, or
you don't have to.
Announce yourself when you're on the YouTube channel.
You don't have to stay on Zoom. I'm just saying that if you are staying on Zoom, just mute yourself and just watch the YouTube thing. But if you are leaving Zoom, just make sure you come back to Zoom after we're done with YouTube.
How long is it gonna be before you're done on YouTube? Seems like you won't be back on Zoom until 9.
Might be a bit. So just try to stay in as much as you can. That's all I'll say. And then,
all right, so I'm gonna just stay here until I get back above ground.
All right. Test 1 2. All right. So yep, you guys can hear me, right? Just make sure that you put in the chat that you can hear what I'm saying. I'm actually going to double check on my end and make sure that you guys can hear me, or rather the YouTube is streaming correctly. It should be. Yeah, looks like it is. All right. So let's jump in to some stuff. By the way, I think some of you have asked me how you do. If you press Command and then you tab, press the tab button on your keyboard, you can actually go through different applications pretty quickly. Just a good way to like not have to go searching for shit. It's like right up here. So Command, I'm holding Command down and I'm hitting the tab key to just tab through all these different apps. Cool little trick that you might want to know. All right, so let's get into the process of recording. So when we're recording, it's very simple. We're trying to capture a sound through a microphone and put it into our DAW, whether it's Pro Tools or whatever it is, right? By the way, all assignments or most assignments should be done in Pro Tools until we get to Ableton. That's the primary focus of the mod, so just a heads up. Cool, looks like everybody's here. So what do I got here? I've got a SM58, which is this guy. You guys have probably seen this before at like live shows or even in certain podcasts. And what I have here is a pop filter. Now you might have even noticed that when I say things like P, B, P, 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 there's a lot of air being pushed out of my mouth, right? And that air can sometimes push compressors and preamps a little harder than they need to, and it can also cause these little pop sounds. So what you do is, in order to mitigate all that stuff, you use what's called a pop filter or a windscreen. Right? This is technically a windscreen, and the pop filter is the thing that goes in front of it. If you've seen the one with the grills, that's a pop filter, right? So you put this right on, and there you go. See, it's a lot cleaner. There's not a lot of popping sounds, right? And even if I say the letter P or B, there's not a lot of air pressure. Things like P's and B's, we call them plosives, right? Plosives meaning like a lot of air is pushed out, and windscreens are great to mitigate that stuff. So anyway, we've got this microphone. When I'm speaking into it, since it's a dynamic microphone, it uses those dynamic physical qualities to change my voice, an acoustic sound in the real world, into an electrical signal, which gets transferred through this cable. This is an XLR cable. So if my voice gets converted to electricity through this microphone, using the dynamic coil going in and out of the electromagnetic field, that gets converted into electricity and flows all the way down this cable to my interface. Now, I think I've already shown you guys this, but the interface I'm using is a UAD Apollo 8P, right? So this guy right here, right? This is my interface. Now, an interface is actually a combination of multiple devices, right? We talked about how every microphone needs a preamp. Well, an interface contains a preamp within it. An interface actually has many, many components to it. It has a preamp. It has a converter. It has a headphone amp. Sometimes it has alternate speaker amps. It has instrument level input, high Z inputs. It has all these different aspects. It even has like D to A converters and A to D converters. So it has many, many components that you need to record, all housed in one unit. Now, here's the thing. Interfaces these days have become very accessible and cheap to everybody. We talked about this in the first class, right? You can get an interface for like $100 or $200, and you can actually start recording and doing stuff with it, right? Now, the problem is the components within that interface are still the same as any other interface. So like converters, preamps, headphone amps, et cetera, but the quality of those components can vary based on the interface that you buy. And the other thing is, when you go to professional studios, like much more high-end studios, you'll start to realize that every single individual component is its own separate piece of gear. So if you've ever walked in a studio and you see these racks of just gear after gear after gear, well, what's happening is that every component of an interface is actually maxed out and put into a rack. So like a converter is an entire unit on a rack. A preamp is an entire unit, and each one of these units can cost like $3,000, $4,000 each, right? So if you can imagine one interface costing $200 versus one good preamp costing $3,000, think about the quality difference that could occur between those two, right? Like a $3,000 preamp like the Vintech X73, which is one of my favorite preamps, sounds so pristine. The way it handles the signal is beautiful, as opposed to like a Scarlett 2i2 preamp, which gets the job done, but, just good enough. Now, the question remains, where do you want to find your quality, right? It's kind of your preference, and the market is definitely accepting lower and lower quality, but, that's just the way it goes, right? And if the music's good, sometimes it doesn't even matter, right? Anyway, so every microphone needs what's called a preamp. We kind of already talked about this because it takes a signal from mic level, right, to line level. Mic level is such a soft signal. It is about minus 60 dB and completely useless in any other form. So in order to make it loud enough to use and manipulate, you need to put it through a preamp. It takes it to line level, which is about plus 4 dB, or in this case, it's about minus 10 dB. Right? So that gives it enough juice, let's say, to actually manipulate and do something with it, right? So it's going into my preamp. And now the cool thing about the UAD, the interface that I'm using, is that you can see on this screen here, this thing called console, right? Console is basically the graphical interface of the actual interface. So what do I mean by that? Everything on this screen over here is somehow connected to the actual physical hardware right here. So it's really awesome because I can manipulate things like gain of the preamp, right? Right up here, you see where it says input. My microphone is going into input 3, and I have a reason for that. But it's going into input 3. You can see the signal coming in, and it goes to this section, which we call the preamp section. And if I dial this up or down, the level will change. So watch this. Test, 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 right? So I can change the amount of gain going that the preamp is giving to this microphone signal. I can do that on the device as well, but I can do it here, which is really, really functional. The other cool thing about this console is that you can apply phantom power. It says 48 volts right over here. You can apply what's called a high pass filter. If you don't know what that is, basically we have these tools called equalizers or EQs where you can manipulate frequencies. And usually when you're doing any kind of vocal based tracking, it's very common to do a high pass filter and get rid of things below like 60 hertz or 50 hertz, because a lot of that stuff is sub information that isn't really needed for a vocal track. And you'll get more into that as you get into Mod 3 and stuff, as to like the advanced versions of recording. There's also what's called a phase flip. The phase flip is actually important when you have more than one microphone on a single source. So what's the example of that? If you have a snare drum and you have two microphones pointed at it, if you have two microphones pointed, kept at different distances, then the signal reaches one microphone before it reaches another, right? But there is the potential of these two signals captured by these microphones to clash, right? That's when we say things are out of phase. What's happening is this thing called constructive and destructive interference, which you might have learned in the first mod. Point being is that if things are out of phase, they can sound really shitty. They can lose a lot of punch, right? But if they're in phase, they can be super tight and have that transient information. So especially with kicks and snare drums, it's really important to keep phase in mind. And the pad is a pad that basically reduces the signal to a certain degree, but I'm not going to use that right now. Now in this case, I'm putting my microphone through a little EQ, right? Now we're going to talk about EQs later, like next week, but just know that this allows me to manipulate the frequency of my sound. So when I turn it off or bypass it, you'll see that my voice sounds a lot different, right? It sounds a little darker, it sounds a little more muddy, but when I put it on, it sounds a lot cleaner, right? So this is just an EQ, and I've also added, it sounds like I've added some gain to it as well, right? But the EQ is actually providing a little bit more of a crisper sound. So if I, boost the high end, it's going to sound brighter. If I reduce the high end, it's going to sound a lot darker, right? So there we go. Then I also have this going into a compressor, right? Again, the cool thing about UAD Apollos is that they have plugins that are emulating real pieces of analog gear, and they really give a good characteristic sound to it. Another good thing is that this emulates what you would do in a console setting, and we're going to start talking about the consoles this week, right? So what I'm basically doing is I'm putting my microphone into a preamp, it's going into an EQ, and then it's going into a compressor. So if you're ever wondering why does my voice sound super evened out and crisp and clear, it's because it's going through these two things. We'll talk about EQs and compressors next week, but just know that this is what's happening. All right? And this is all before I've even recorded anything into Pro Tools. So it's pretty dope. And obviously, right at the bottom, you can see that I have different options to pan things to the left. So I should be on the left side of your speaker. And now I should be on the right side of your speaker or headphones, right? I also have the option to turn myself down or up. But remember, this fader is different from this gain, right? Gain staging, very, very important. Turning myself up here is different from turning myself up here. And you'll understand that as you do more and more work. So there you go. I've got the signal coming in. It's at a pretty good level. You can see that I'm going around minus. Now this is actually more extreme. This isn't really what I would call an ideal place for vocal tracking, but since I'm talking in more of a podcast-like format, I would say this is a good place to be, right? Around -6 to -3 is good. I'm averaging around there too. Worst case, I go to like around -9 dB, right? Anyway, point being is that if you're doing podcasts, this is kind of a good place to be, at least a good starting point, right? Now, I'm not going to say too much more about this console, but that's kind of the basics of what you might want to know, is that the preamp section is up here. It has some plugins, effects that you can have, and then you have the actual signal coming down here. This is what's going to be fed into Pro Tools, all right? That's what we're going to get into next. So if I go to Pro Tools and I go ahead and open up a new session, let's call it Intro to Rec PT. I'm going to make sure that my file type is WAV, 44.1, 24-bit, and let's go ahead and create. Pro Tools, so I'm saving it in the correct place. It's on my work drive, SAE, this mod, Pro Tools sessions, Go ahead and hit save. Boom. And just to be sure, if I go to Finder and I go to that same location, you can see that my Pro Tools session is right here with all the components. Again, this is something I also caught, is that you want to make sure you're super organized all the time. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense now when you're starting out, and it's also a little bit irritating because it's like you just want to fucking go. You just want to use Pro Tools and get comfortable with it. But I'm just emphasizing on the organizational part because you're going to have to keep track of all this stuff down the line, right? There's going to be clients who come to you in 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years saying like, hey, remember that song we did? Can I get like a stem of that? Or can I get like a minus track of that? Or I want to remaster it, or I want to do remixing of it. Like keep things organized and you'll be fine, right? It's a much better look, and it kind of comes across in this whole etiquette that we talked about. So, let's get into it. So we got our Pro Tools session here. Let me actually slow this down. So we got our Pro Tools session here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this. Just going to click on the pull down menu. I'm going to go to bars and beats because that's really what we work in most of the time. And the first thing I'm going to do, and this is part of the first assignment in recording, I'm basically running through the assignments right now, so keep an ear open. I'm going to create a click track, right? We all know what a click track is. Like when I hit play, you hear the click track. So that's good. Now, if you're not hearing anything, the first thing you got to do is go to Setup, Playback Engine, and make sure that you are on the right interface. I'm using the UAD, the Universal Audio. It's the Thunderbolt connection, so that's why it's selected. If you're not using an interface and you're connecting directly to the iMac or the laptop, then you'll probably use what's called either Pro Tools Aggregate, or if you have a built-in input and built-in output, that's what you would use, right? If you're curious as to what Pro Tools Aggregate I/O means, it's a default I/O that allows you to set your built-in microphone as the input and your built-in speakers as the output. So it kind of creates its own little interface right here. The cool thing about MacBooks is that you can create aggregate devices however you want them. So I could combine my UAD with my internal sound card as well. I'll show you guys that if you're interested, but it's got nothing to do with the mod. So I'm going to skip that right now. So I set the interface correctly. Now, one thing that I got to mention is that buffer size plays an important role whenever it comes to recording or mixing. And I mentioned this before, that for recording, you want lower buffer sizes. If you put your buffer size super high while recording, you're going to hear a latency between the person talking and the signal coming back from Pro Tools. You don't want to do that because it's very annoying, very distracting, and just plain wrong, right? So what you want to do is you want to set a lower buffer size when you're recording, higher buffer size when you're mixing. Just general plain rules to follow. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. There we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Track. I'm going to go to New. And I'm going to create one new mono. Why mono? Because it's one microphone. So one microphone means it's one channel, right? One microphone going to one preamp. I only need to record one channel. Stereo is 2 channel, right? If you click on this, you have all these different options. But mono, well, you might not have these options. You might only have mono, stereo, and something else. But mono is what you want to use. Audio track. An audio track is a track in Pro Tools that you can put clips onto, audio clips. Remember, audio clips live on audio tracks. There are different types of tracks, and we'll go through some of them during this mod, but the audio track is what we're using now. So one mono audio track. Keep it in samples. Very important. We'll go over ticks later. And then give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to call it Vox Rec for vocal recording, right? I can hit create, and there we go. It's a mono track because you can see there's 1 meter over here. and it has the name Vox Track. Now, if you don't like the name, you can double click on the name over here and call it something else, like Vox Rec or Vocal Rec, if you just want to rename it, right? Again, we can see it in the mix window as well as another way to view it. Now, me personally, any session that I create, I always like to put a master fader, and it's something that you might want to, actually not even might, it's something that I highly recommend that you do for every session. Create a stereo master fader. All right. A master fader is basically where all the signals go to at the end. All right. Why mono? Because it's one microphone is going to one preamp. That's one channel, right? One channel means mono. Now, if this was the case where I was recording like a piano and I needed one microphone for the low strings or the low section and another microphone for the high section, yeah, maybe in that case, I could take both of those microphones and put them to a stereo track. But since it's one vocal, it's one microphone, one preamp, one channel, mono. Yes. All right, so we got our master fader, very important. Always create a master fader. Click track, vocal track, right? Next, you want to make sure that you can see the inputs and outputs of these tracks. To do that, you go up to this little white bar over here, like I mentioned, and if you click the pull down menu, it gives you these options of different things to view. You can see comments if you want to. You can see inserts if you want to. I don't really need to see any of those. I only need to make sure I can see I/O. All right. So there we go. We got inputs on top, outputs on the bottom over here, right? The next thing I like to do is I like to color my tracks. Now, if you don't know how to color tracks, watch this. You select any track, you go to Window, go to Color Palette, and you can change it to whatever you want, right? Ooh. There we go. Whatever. I'm going to choose blue. That's what I like to have vocals as. There you go. The other way to do it is to just double click on the actual color and the window palette comes up. Right. Next, you want to make sure that the input to the track is set to the correct channel. Now, if I click on this, I'll see that I have two options. I can set the input to an interface, which is a physical location, a physical device, or I can set it to a bus. Remember, buses are virtual paths, so we're not really there yet. We haven't talked about buses yet or how to use them. So I need to go to my interface section. I just clicked on input, went to interface, and I said I was on input 3 on the interface, so I need to go to mic line 3 and make sure the output is correct, and there you go. We should be good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the track right now because right now you're hearing me and I'm hearing me through the console, which is this guy, right? That's how you guys are hearing me, basically. If I was to play it back through this, you'd hear two signals, so I'm just muting it for now. So now, if I hit record enable, you'll see that my signal is coming into the track. Now, just to show you what I'm talking about, if I undo the mute, you'll hear a kind of phasing effect happening, right? Because you're hearing two voices, one of them which is slightly delayed. So that's why I'm going to mute the track so that you don't get all confused. But there you go. Record enable is basically how you arm a track and get it ready to record, okay? So there's another button called input monitor as well. So if I take it off record enable, you'll see that the signal is no longer showing up. And if I put it on input monitor, you're like, oh wait, the signal is coming in now. So what's the difference between the two, right? Well, there is a difference. Well, for one, you can't record when you're just on input monitor, right? If I try to hit record and I hit play, no tracks are record enabled, so it won't let me record. The other thing is that when you're input monitoring, it will never play whatever is on this track, right? It'll always be monitoring the input, which is this guy. Whereas if you're on record enable and you hit play, watch, as soon as I hit play, the signal on the track is going to disappear, right? I'm going to hit play now, and you can see that the signal is no longer showing up. That's because in record enable mode, you're going to listen to whatever has been recorded on the track. This will make sense in a bit. But check this out. I'm getting signal, right? I have my click track set up. I'm actually going to make sure I can see the tempo. And fine, we'll just leave it at 120 for now. We're on bars and beats. I'm going to make this track a lot bigger. And let's start recording. So, quick little tip. If you have your cursor anywhere in the session, if you want to go all the way to the beginning, you just hit return on your keyboard and the cursor goes all the way back to the beginning. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record and I'm going to just count. Just do some basic counting, right? There are different record modes, but the one that I'm going to talk about first is the normal mode, right? So the ones that we're going to go over are normal, loop, destructive, and quick punch, right? So let's go to normal first. Going to go ahead and hit record, right? So you'll see that the button flashes red for a second, and then I hit play, and it starts recording, right? Anything that I say is being recorded. There you go. Now, if I take it off record enable, or you know what, keep it on record enable, unmute, so now you're probably going to hear two voices. That's okay. But as soon as I hit play, you're not going to hear my voice right now, my current speaking. You're going to hear what I recorded. So check this out. I hit play, and it starts recording, right? Anything that I say is being recorded. So you hear what's been recorded. That's what record enable is for when you want to hear what's being recorded and not hear the signal coming in. Now, the reason why you could still hear my voice is because of the console, so don't worry about that too much. Now, one thing is, if I wanted to start recording right from the top of a session, I would need some sort of pre-roll to actually give me time to say the first few numbers. Now, in order to do that, you need to go to the top right corner over here. All right, there's a little pull-down menu, and you go to MIDI controls, and right here you see something called count off. If you enable that, double-click on the bars and say, set it to like 1 bar or something. Now when I hit record and then play, it'll give me 1 bar pre-roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. So that is that. Now, in this case, I'm not going to do a count off. I'm just going to do it. I'm actually just going to wait 1 bar and start recording from bar 2. You don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to do it this way for a specific reason, which doesn't really matter. But here we go. I turned the count off, and I'm ready to record my first take. The shortcut to record is Command Space, but if that's already set to something like search, right, like mine is, then the other option is the number 3 on the numeric pad, right? And if you don't have a numeric pad, then you'll have to change your keyboard shortcuts in your system preferences. So what I mean by that is if you go to Apple, System Prefs, go to your keyboard, go to shortcuts, you'll see that somewhere it will say, let's see. See how Command Space is show spotlight search? Yeah, you'd have to turn that off if you wanted to use Command Space as your shortcut. But in this case, I have a numeric pad, so I'm just going to hit 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So we got our first take. I'm going to take it off record enable and just unmute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go, right? So this is normal record mode, right? You just put your cursor somewhere, you hit record. Well, you first have to record enable the track. The shortcut to record enable is Shift R, just so you know. And then you hit 3, and there it starts recording. Boom. Very, very easy, right? So remember, we can always edit this if you want to, do our little fancy stuff to it. But what I'm going to do now is I want to record another take of me counting, right? So in order to do a new take in Pro Tools, we have this system called playlists, all right? So right now what you're seeing on this track, this is the main playlist. This is what's going to play back when I hit play on the track. But what I want to do is I want to hide this playlist in a subsection and have a new playlist to record a new take, all within the same track. Remember this same track over here. Now, in order to do that, I go right where the name is. Right next to it is a little downward arrow. You click on that, and you see a couple of options come up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to say Name for New Playlist. Sure, I'll call it Vocal Rec 01. Or if you want to, you can call it Vocal Rec Take 2. Oh, put a different character in there. And now you see that whatever I recorded disappeared, and this is now called Vocal Rec Take 2. So you're like, wait, what happened to the other one, right? Well, if you click on that same arrow, you'll see that you have two options. The Vocal Rec from before, which I will now call Vocal Rec Take 1, and Vocal Rec Take 2. So you have all the playlists and all the different takes available on the same track, right? So I'm just going to record again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we got take 2. I did it in a slightly different pitch, right? So we have take 1, take 2, and they even look different, right? Let's do one more. So go to click on the down arrow, hit new. Let's call this Vocal Rec Take 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. There we go. We have 3 different takes of me performing a simple count. So I can take it off record enable and mute, and I can listen to all 3. So take 1 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have all these different takes all on the same track. So if you can think about how this applies, if this was like a chorus section, you could have the artist perform the chorus over and over again and do different takes, right? Different takes of the same different performances of the same section of a song. So if this was the chorus, he could try it multiple times until he or she gets it, right? This is the beauty of tracking, and it's the beauty of doing multiple playlists. Now you might be wondering, well, how do I punch in words, right? So for example, let's take the example of take 2, right? 1, or let's actually do one more just to like make this interesting. This is take 4, right? And let's just record enable. And let's go ahead and hit record. 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7. Right? You're like, wait a second. That doesn't sound like proper counting because I counted wrong. 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7. So you're like, hold on, you didn't count right, you idiot. So now we got to go in and either do the whole take again, or we can actually do what's called a punch in. Right now, in order to do a punch in, you actually have to go up here to your record button and switch it from normal to quick punch. And you do that by right clicking on the record button and choosing quick punch. This is the most common way of tracking in Pro Tools. Almost 90% of the time you're tracking, it's probably going to be in quick punch mode. If anybody wants to guess what the second most popular mode is out of these four, put it in the comments, but I think you guys will be able to get it. So in quick punch mode, you can actually punch in and out of recordings that have already been made. So check this out. So how does this go? 1, 2, 3, 3, 5. Right. So it's 1, 2, 3, 3, right? I'm just going to go ahead and mute myself on console because it's kind of distracting. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 5. So we need to replace the second 3 with a 4. And what I need to do is, while it's playing, I can actually hit the record shortcut, which is either Command Space or the numeric pad number 3. So check this out. It's playing. And now it's recording. I just hit the number 3, right? There you go. Or you can just click the button right up there. So you can see that while something is playing, you can actually start recording. Yes, Ty, great. Loop is the second most popular one. So what we're going to do is we're going to punch in whenever I say the second 3 to replace it with the number 4. 1. So I'm going to do this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So you see how I punched in that one word? I just hit the number 3 to punch in and the number 3 to punch out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. And we didn't get 7, so we got to do 7 as well. But let's just focus on the first one, the 3. So all I did was I let it play. When it got to the number 4, I hit the record button. And then as soon as I was done saying 4, I hit the record button again, and it stopped recording. So check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't do it as well, but let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there you go. I just punched in for the number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Now we already have our lovely little editing tools to go in and fine tune this, right? We already know how to edit. So I can go in and make those fine adjustments. We already talked about crossfading. And if anybody was wondering why I like these equal power ones, they're perfect for vocal editing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Right? There you go. Sounds like a perfect take. The only thing is, we still have 7, 7, 7, 7 that we have to fix. Now, there's a couple of cool things about Quick Record that's going to fucking blow your mind, right? So first thing I'm going to say is that whenever you use Quick Record, Pro Tools is always listening. So for example, suppose I punch in late. Suppose I'm not that fast on my game, right? So let's do it with 7. 5, 6, 7, 7. So I'm going to go here. 5, 6, 7. So I need to do 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Suppose I do it wrong. Check this out. And I punch in late. 5, 6, 7, 7, 8. So I was way late on that shit, right? Way late. Check it out. 5, 6, 7, 7, 8. Right? But the fucking brilliant thing about Pro Tools is that the clip that you recorded, it actually extends back and it was listening the entire time. That's the fucking shit in Pro Tools, right? It was always listening, so I can pull it back to where I actually said the number 8, and then it's just a matter of editing, baby. 5, 6, 7, 8, right? There you go. Pretty fucking crazy, right? I'll show you what, guys, one more time, right? So I punch in late, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? That S is still there. 7, 8, 7, 8, right? 5, 6, 7, 8. That's wrong. But since it was always listening, I can click and drag it back, fade it into the previous one, and we got ourselves a nice take. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pretty fucking wild, in my opinion. Right? So let's do another version of this. Now, the shortcut to make a new playlist is Control /. So the same way, like instead of clicking this little arrow and going to new, it's Control and then the / button, which is right under the delete button. So let's call this take 5, right? Let's record something else. Let's see. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Man, I'm fucking bad at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's a basic example of, hey, I counted 4 twice. What about 5, 6, 7, 8? Well, I'll use my punch-in method. So hit play, and then I'm going to punch in right after the number 4. So check this out. Mouse up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there you go. Do our little editing thing. I'm in slip mode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. So that is quick punch mode. It is fucking brilliant. It is the lifesaver of lifesavers. There's so many times where an artist will do something where you're so worried you didn't catch it, but that quick punch is always listening when you're recording, right? So, or record enabled, right? It's brilliant. I've caught so many ad libs and ins and outs literally from doing a quick punch. Or even like at the end of certain things, not catching the tail ends of things, same shit. Now, what I want to go over is this idea of pre-roll and post-roll. You might have heard this, but check this out. I'm going to take this example again of where I'm actually saying the numbers repeated. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this second 1, 2, 3, 4 I need to replace with 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I could do with the quick punch method like I was showing you, just hit play from the top and then punch in whenever the cursor reaches where you want to start recording. Or I can use what's called a pre-roll, right? So right up here is our pre-roll, post-roll section. And you can see that you can choose the number of bars that you set as your pre-roll, post-roll. So I'm going to say 1 bar, set my pre-roll. Oop. And now, if I hit the play button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you see how it started playing 1 bar before the actual cursor? That's a pre-roll. So my cursor is here on bar 3, beat 1, but it's going to start from bar 2, beat 1. I'm just going to hit play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Very convenient because it starts playing from before. And it's also convenient because now if I hit the record button and I hit play, it's going to play me a pre-roll and only start recording when I get to the cursor. Check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You see how it only started recording when it got to that cursor point, but it gave me a pre-roll? So why is that good? So if you have like a chorus and the guy wants to hear a pre-chorus before it gets into the chorus, you can set up a pre-roll. And the same thing applies. Even though this got cut short a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? I lost a little bit of the F on 5. It still was listening. So you can drag that shit out and it's all there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very, very, very convenient, right? So there you go. That is the use of a pre-roll. Now you might be wondering, well, what the fuck is a post-roll? So let's go back to the example of where I don't know how to count. So I'm going to do take 6. and do a poor job of counting, right? So it's hard to not count correctly. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 6, 7, 8. Right? 1, 2. I think that's right. So anyway, I've got the middle numbers wrong, right? I'm going to turn my pre-roll off. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5. Right. Okay. So I need to replace these two. These need to be 4 and 5. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my grid a little finer. I'm going to make it 8th notes, or actually I'll go 16th notes. I'm going to highlight these two. I have to change 3, 3. That's wrong. So what I need to do is I need to set up a pre-roll. I'm going to have that start 1 bar before, and I'm going to set up a post-roll of 1 bar so I can hear whatever's after. So this is a great example of if you have a line of a song, right, a phrase, and you just want to fix the middle, you can do it the original way by being fast and punching in and punching out manually, or you can highlight the word and set up a pre-roll and post-roll so that it'll start playing, record the word, and then play the post-roll. So this is exactly what's going to happen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you saw that? It replaced the 3, 3 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it played a pre-roll and post-roll so I could hear the before and after of the thing that I wanted to change. Very, very efficient. And again, same thing applies, is that you can drag this back and fade. You can drag this out and fade. Again, fucking brilliant, in my opinion. So there you go. Pre-roll, post-roll, very, very, very useful. All right. Now let's take a simple example. I'm going to actually create a new audio track for this just to show you. Let's take an example of vocal loop. All right. So I'm going to color this vocal loop a different color. Let's say orange, right? So suppose I want to actually record a section of a song over and over and over again. I literally want to try recording the same vocal part over and over and over again until I get it right, or until the artist gets it right. That's where the loop mode becomes very useful. So you right click, you go to loop mode, and now now you can record in a loop. So it's going to keep recording this section over and over again. You just highlight the section you want, and it's just going to keep recording over and over and over again. So check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? So it'll give you multiple attempts at recording the same section. Now, in this particular case, it kept the latest try that I made. So I tried like 3 times, but it kept the latest one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, in some cases, you might be like, wait, I want to keep all the different takes. I don't want to just get the latest one. Now, this is a cool option to have because sometimes it becomes ridiculous to have this many takes at your disposal, right? The option paralysis kicks in and you're like, oh my God, there's too many takes. Let's just take the latest and greatest one, right? But if you are an engineer and you're like, you know what, I want to keep track of everything and make sure that we capture and save everything, you can actually go to your Pro Tools preferences. And if you go to operation, I believe, and you go to, let's see, it says loop. There is an option where it will save every single loop that you actually make. Enable automation, audio track, record lock. I'm not actually seeing it right now. Where the fuck is that shit? I don't see it. Where the fuck is it? Hold on, I gotta find this thing. This is ridiculous. Last record enable button. No. Enable automation. I don't know if I'm not seeing it. If you guys see it, then point it out in the chat, but I'm not really seeing it right now, but it is somewhere in the preferences. Hold on. Keep all takes. Record loop Pro Tools. Control click, playback button, right click. Let's see. Oh, I guess it was already set. My bad. So you can see that when I clicked on the arrow, it was already set to where I have all the 3 different takes. But there is a way to turn that off. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, and it is in the preferences somewhere. So right now you can see that I have 3 different takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. Right? It took all 3 takes, but I'm so fucking sure that there's a way to not do that. There's a way to actually just keep the latest and greatest. And I'm not seeing it right now. I don't know why. If it's because I'm blind or something. What the fuck? I'll find that out for you guys and figure that out. I'm not sure what's going on here. And if you guys find it before me, definitely let me know. Whatever. All right, I'm not seeing it. But there is a way to loop and only keep the latest take, or you can keep all different takes. But that's the function of a loop, right? You can loop the same section over and over again until you get the take that you want. Now, if you keep doing this over and over again, you're going to have a whole shit ton of playlists. So sometimes it's not the most efficient way to do it, but it is also a cool way to keep track of everything in case you need to go back, right? So that's loop mode for you. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and right-click and hide and make this inactive because I don't really need this track anymore. Going to go back to this guy. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about the destructive. Now, this is the least popular one that's used, right? And the reason why it's the least popular is that it actually destroys a lot of data that you use, that you overwrite with. So check this out. Okay, so I already got rid of that. But what essentially happens is in destructive mode, you could potentially lose data underneath already existing. See, I've already lost what I did. 2, 3. I already lost data of what I did because I recorded over what was previously recorded. It's the least popular one, and it's really used because if you want to save space and you want to, like, you know, make sure that you're not stressing your hard drive, yeah, destructive is the way to go. But now that space is so easy to buy and it's cheap, it's very rare that you'll actually use the destructive mode. You can't hear me? You should be able to hear me. Auto create new playlist when loop recording. Yeah, that's the one. Wherever that preference is, I don't know if I didn't see it in the preferences, but it should be there. All right, cool. You can hear me now. Good. Ty, it was in the preferences, right? I just want to be sure. Auto create. Man, my fucking eyes. Is it under operation or is it under something else? I'm like literally blind right now. I can't fucking see shit. Yo, if I'm blind and I can't see it, hopefully you guys see it, but there is a auto somewhere. Man, what the fuck? This is how rarely I ever use that loop mode, right? Quick punch is always the way to go. Am I fucking blind? Am I like the only one not seeing this shit? This is fucking ridiculous. All right, I'm fucking blind, but it's somewhere in there, right? Auto create new playlist when loop mode. Oh, yeah, it's right here. There it is. Jesus Christ. Right? So if I turn this off, you see how it was on? It says automatically creates new playlist when loop recording. But if I turn this off and I go to that other take that we did, or just create a new track, fuck it. And if I record enable and I do this on loop mode now, it won't do all the different, it won't keep all the different takes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? Whatever. It doesn't keep all the different playlists. It just keeps the latest one. 16, 17, right? So that's the other preference of loop record. Thank you, Ty. I'm fucking blind as shit. I don't know why I couldn't see that. I rarely ever use that loop mode. Again, quick punch is the lifesaver. I think everybody 90% of the time uses quick punch mode, and that's usually where I leave it at. But there you go. You've got all these different types of record modes in order to actually get the takes that you desire, right? Now, here's the thing. We have all these different takes over here, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and go back to my console. And now you should be able to still hear me. And we have all these different takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? And we can switch between them. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? The shortcut to go between different takes is shift, up arrow, down arrow. So you see how on the left side you can see I'm going through the different takes. Take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Now this is all cool, but what if I wanted to see all the different takes at the same time? Well, in that scenario, I can go to my waveform over here, click on that, and open up playlists, right? So in playlists, now you can actually view all the takes that you did in one go, right? If you want to listen to any of them, remember that when you hit play, you will only be listening to the main playlist, the one that's right on top over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you wanted to listen to any of these, you would have to hit the solo button on the take that you want to hear. So let's say I want to hear take 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or take 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. Right? So whenever you hit the solo button, you are listening to the individual take that's being soloed. And if you have no solos selected, then you're actually listening to the main playlist, the one on top, right? Just kind of just change size accidentally. I can show. So yeah, when none of these are soloed, you're listening to the main playlist right up here. All right. Now, what becomes interesting is that you can actually pick and choose which takes you want to actually use. Or you can pick and choose which parts of different takes you want to use. So for example, suppose I like the first 3 numbers of take 1, but I like the next 3 numbers of take 2. So what I can do is I can highlight, I can basically first listen to it, right? 4, 5, 6. I want 4, 5, and 6 from take 2. So I can just highlight 4, 5, 6. As soon as I highlight a part of the take, you see that this little arrow shows up over here. It kind of becomes enabled or solid. And when you click on that arrow, this portion of the take is going to get copied and shifted up to the main playlist. So you're basically moving this up to the main playlist. So 1, 2, 3, click on this, and you see how this went all the way up there. And now your main playlist sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Let's do it again. So suppose I want to take the number 2 from take number 3. I highlight that word. As soon as I highlight it, you see how this arrow became solid. Check this out. All right. Click on this arrow and it moves up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? And you can do this for basically anything. Now, because we are engineers and we want to be as good as possible, we now have to go in. Well, let's first hear what we got from the different takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? So you can obviously hear that there's a couple of bad edits. So now, being the good engineers that we are, we need to go in and fine tune all this. So we have all our favorite parts. Let's go to click on playlists, go to waveform, go back to our original view and do some editing. So you guys already know how to edit. So make sure that you have fade ins, crossfades, right? Make sure you're crossfading between all of them. And if you don't know where to crossfade, that's when you actually listen. 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. Yeah, this one's where. 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. I don't like that. 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 6, 7, 6, 7. Now S's are a great fucking place. 6, 7, 7. Oh, right. We want 7 from here, not from the other one. So this has to actually be here. 5, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8. And there you go. Done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. There you go. That is what we call vocal comping. All right. Because what you're doing is you're compiling different takes all together into a single take. Right. That's vocal comping. Now, ideally, I would have done this on a new playlist, but for now, that's fine. So what do I mean by that? Just one more time. If this was take 1, right, and we go back to our playlist view, right, we have all these different takes. What I would have done is I would have created a new playlist called Vocal Rec, and I would call it Vocal Rec Comp. And why am I calling it comp? Because now I can combine all these different aspects or different takes together to get the desired results. Oh, and by the way, I should also mention that the shortcut to push things up is Control Option V. It's a short way to do it. But now I have all my takes on the main playlist. I can hit playlist and go back to waveform, do that crossfade thing that I just showed you, right? 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to take some educated guesses here. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to listen until the end. All right, I'm just looking at the waveform and kind of guessing at this point. But let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. There you go. So that is what we call a vocal comp. We have combined multiple takes and combined it together into a single track, a single take, a single playlist. This is how you can take multiple performances of the same area and then combine them to get the best performance. This is what every artist does. if you've ever listened to any record, there are multiple takes going into it, and they pick and choose not only the best takes, but they pick and choose the best parts of those takes, combine them together to make one solid master take, right? So there you go. That is vocal comping, and that is actually the next two assignments for you: vocal recording and vocal comping, right? So let's actually take it back to Zoom for a little bit, and let's talk about some stuff.